Hi guys, welcome. Hope everyone is doing good and hope you're making good use of the News in 30 Minutes initiative. Alright, now in today's News in 30 Minutes, let us discuss some of the important issues on the 13th of December 2023. Let's get right ahead to it. The first issue is India unlikely to join the global cooling pledge that is started in COP28 of UNFCCC. The pledge would require major investment by countries to shift to sustainable cooling technologies and also to raise the cost of such products. Okay, this sentence is important because I'll come back to it later. The first is, let us talk a little bit about what is this global cooling pledge. Okay, global cooling pledge is basically to reduce cooling emissions. To reduce cooling emissions. Okay, what do you mean by cooling emissions? Cooling emissions are basically GHG gases, that is greenhouse gases that are released from cooling devices. GHG gases that are released from cooling devices. Cooling devices such as refrigerants and ACs. Okay, these cooling devices, they also release greenhouse gases. And through these greenhouse gases, there is global warming that results in climate change. So basically, the global cooling pledge is to reduce the cooling emissions across the world. Okay, the reason why cooling emissions becomes important is cooling emissions constitutes or is set to account to 7% of greenhouse gases by 2050. So it is set to account for 7% of greenhouse gases by 2050. It is already 7% of greenhouse gases and it is set to be tripling. It is set to triple by 2050. Okay, I'm really sorry. The current cooling emissions contribution to greenhouse gases is 7% and it is set to triple by 2050. Okay, so hence cooling emissions must be reduced is what is the order of the day. So for that, they have come up with something called Global Cooling Pledge. Now, according to Global Cooling Pledge, 63 countries have taken this pledge, according to which the countries are committed to reduce their cooling emissions, by at least 68% by 2050. To reduce their cooling emissions by at least 68% by 2050. So this is what is global cooling pledge. So to just give you a summary of it, global cooling pledge is basically talking about reducing cooling emissions. Cooling emissions are the release of greenhouse gases by cooling devices like refrigerants and ACs, and they currently account for 7% of the global greenhouse gases. And if left unabated, then these cooling emissions can contribute almost up to 20% of greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Okay, and in order to reduce this cooling emissions in COP28, they have come across something called Global Cooling Pledge, where 63 countries have committed to reduce their cooling emissions by at least 68% by 2050. Now, how are they going to reduce this cooling emissions? They are going to reduce this cooling emissions by two ways. The one is the countries will shift to sustainable cooling technologies. The second is they will raise the cost of our products. Now, this is what India doesn't like, these two steps. One, the countries has to shift to sustainable cooling technologies, and the second is the raising of cost of these products. This is something that India has not been in lines with. That is why India has not joined the Global Cooling Pledge. Okay. Now, let me tell you why. If I bring the Indian context, India already has Indian Cooling Action Plan. India already has Indian Cooling Action Plan 2019. According to this action plan, we aim to reduce the power demand by these cooling devices by cooling across sectors. Okay, we aim to reduce the power demand by cooling across sectors by 20% to 25% by 2038. See, this is India's cooling action plan to reduce the power demand by cooling across sectors by 20 to 25% by 2038. So this is something that India has already started even before the global cooling pledge. So India wants to go ahead with this, and India also tells that the reason why India does not want to join the global cooling pledge is because, one, India is a low emitter nation. Currently India emits very low per capita emissions. So if you take the per capita emissions of India, India's per capita emissions are very, very low compared to USA, European Union, or if you take China. Okay, so India is currently a very low per capita emissions nations, and since it is a developing country, in the future the per capita emissions are going to increase. And when the per capita emission is going to increase, if you are telling that we have to shift our investment towards cooling devices, and you are also telling that we have to increase the cost of cooling devices, then these two things, shifting our investment towards cooling devices and increasing the cost of cooling devices, will hurt India's growth and development. Okay, so this is something that we can overlook for now, because for now this is not the top priority of India. So because of this reason, India is not part of the global cooling pledge. India does not accept the part that we have to shift our investment towards cooling devices because we are already investing enormously on green technologies. Okay, so that is one. The second is, India says that we cannot abide by increasing the cost of these cooling devices. That in turn will hurt the India's growth and development, because it will push up the prices of all the products in the industries. Okay, so that is why India does not want to be part of cooling pledge. However, being a responsible nation that it is, India already has its own cooling action plan, according to which it is going to reduce the power of cooling by 20 to 25% by 2038. Okay, so this is the scenario. All right, now when you come to cooling emissions, I told you cooling emissions are basically coming from cooling devices. Okay, so these cooling devices are nothing but ACs and refrigerators. Okay, these ACs and refrigerators are known as cooling devices. Now, these cooling devices are basically used something called CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. So, because of the use of chlorofluorocarbons in 1985, the scientists came to know that there is something called ozone hole that is happening. That is, the ozone is depleting near Antarctica. And because the ozone was depleting near Antarctica, in 1987, they signed a protocol called Montreal Protocol. In this protocol, they told that they will freeze and they will stop using CFCs. So when this Montreal Protocol was signed, where CFCs were stopped, all the cooling devices started to use HFCs and HCFCs. That is, hydrofluorocarbon and hydrochlorofluorocarbons. However, though these were not depleting the ozones, they are very potent greenhouse gases. They are called short-living climatic pollutants. Okay, they are called short-living climatic pollutants. They are also greenhouse gases, and these are very, very potent greenhouse gases. Now, this started creating global warming, and in order to fight this HFCs came the next agreement in 2016, which is known as Kigali Agreement. Okay, and in this agreement, there was a pledge to reduce HFCs. There's a pledge to reduce HFCs by 80%. Pledge to reduce HFCs by 80% by 2047. Okay, so overall, this has been the story regarding cooling devices. You have to know about the concept of CFCs, ozone hole, Montreal Protocol, HFCs, Kigali Agreement. Okay, and this is the story behind it. And there is also one organization called Clean Air Coalition. There is an organization called Clean Air Coalition. This Clean Air Coalition is an international body that is mainly looking into reducing short-lived climate pollutants. Okay, so short-lived climate pollutants, as I told you, one is HFCs, another is methane, another is black carbon, and another is tropospheric ozone. Okay, so these are some of the short-living climatic pollutants which are very potent greenhouse gases that seeks to be reduced by an international organization known as Clean Air Coalition. Okay, so I hope you got the difference between what is Montreal Protocol, what is Kigali Protocol, and how they help in reduction of CFCs and HFCs. You also understood India's cooling action plan, and you also understood what is this global cooling pledge and why India did not join the global cooling pledge. In COP28, there are several initiatives that India has not joined, so be very clear with those initiatives. Okay, this completes the first issue of the day. The next issue is Universal Declaration of Human Rights, okay, which marks the 75th anniversary. Okay, so basically December 10th is declared as Human Rights Day. It is it's declared as Human Rights Day. The reason is, on December 10th of 1948, the United Nations General Assembly will adopt a resolution or will adopt a document that is now known as Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, in 1948, the United Nations General Assembly will adopt a document. The document will become famously known as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, why did they adopt in 1948? Because they were able to see the horrors of World War II and the Holocaust. Okay, the mass killing of the Jewish population is what is known as Holocaust. So, because of the horrors of World War II and Holocaust, they felt that such incidents should not be repeated again, and because of that, the entire world came together in UNGA to pass a resolution that is known as Universal Declaration of Human Rights. When this was passed, there was no nation that voted against it. There were very few nations that abstained from voting yes, but no nation voted against the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, so that is we are having the 75th anniversary, because from 1948 to 2023 marks the 75th anniversary. Okay, now one thing what you should know is this particular document, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, this document has a preamble and it has 30 articles. It has a preamble and 30 articles, and there is a very famous statement here that says that this particular declaration proclaims a common standard of achievement, for all people and all nations. Okay, this you can use in your answer. The common standard of achievement for all people and all nations. That is a very good statement that is there, a very famous statement that is that this declaration will proclaim. This is what is Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, now Article 1 is very famous. That is, it says that all human beings are free and equal. All human beings are free and equal. Article 2 says that all or everyone have the same rights and freedoms. All or everyone have the same rights and freedoms. So these two articles again creates that world with equality and fairness and justice. So three things are assured: equality, fairness and justice. So these are the three values that is assured by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, now if you have to take the inspiration from this document, what all this document has done, this document has helped create 70 different human rights treaties. It has helped create 70 different human rights treaties at global as well as regional level. That is one achievement of UDHR. The next is it helped in the decolonization movement. Because of the UDHR, the decolonization started. That is, the colonial nations had to withdraw. The imperialistic nations had to withdraw from their colonies. So that triggered the decolonization because there was a violation of human rights in these colonies. It also helped in anti-apartheid movement, especially in the 1990s. The anti-apartheid movement was something that came up because of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and today we have the rights of LGBTQ. which is seen evolving, and it is mainly because of this UDHR. Okay, so these are some of the inspirational works of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, however, there are some challenges that still remain. These challenges are: one, there is war taking place, that is Russia-Ukraine war. There is Palestine-Hamas war. So these are some things that that are something that UDHR has failed to accomplish to stop these wars. The next is the issue of migrants. It may be illegal migrants, it may be legal migrants, it can be asylum seekers. So irrespective of what category they fall, international, it can be internal, okay, it can be illegal. So all these migrants still lack proper mechanism for protection of their human rights. And the last is some social evils still persist that question the human rights. For example, you have racism and other type of discrimination. Okay, so if you take the challenges, one is the war that persists around the globe, the second is the migrant issue, and the third is the social evils like racism that still occurs, which completely violates the human rights and completely violates the values of humanity, which questions the conscience of humanity. So these are some challenges that still remain. So the work of UDHR is not done. It needs to be one, it needs to evolve, and the second, it needs to reach most parts of this nation, which is yet to be done. Okay, and this reach of this UDHR depends upon the UNGA and more importantly the United Nations Security Council. Okay, how they act, it reflects how UDHR can be upheld. As you can see, the Russia-Ukraine war, Russia is the part of UNSC. And if you say the Palestine-Hamas war, Israel is constantly supported by USA, which is also part of UNSC. So UNSC plays a very important role in upholding the UDHR, or the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. India, as responsible nation, has always upheld the values of humanity and abided by the declaration of this document. Not only has it abided, but it has also used this UDHR as a means to inculcate values into its constitution also. Okay, our constitution very beautifully reflects the values enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, so this is what we celebrate, the 75th anniversary of the UDHR document. Okay, so I hope it was helpful. So this is about this issue. The next issue is an anti-terror law and its interference with liberty. Basically, this is talking about Fahad Shah case that is taking place in Jammu and Kashmir High Court. Okay, Fahad Shah case that is taking place in Jammu and Kashmir High Court, where the Jammu and Kashmir High Court has questioned the UAPA law, and it has questioned two important sections of UAPA law, and those sections are, one is section 18, another is section 43D of 5. Okay, these are the two sections that the UAPA law has questioned. The Jammu Kashmir High Court has questioned regarding the UAPA law. Now, before I come to these sections, it is important for you to know what is UAPA Act 1967. Okay, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967 is basically an act in order to protect India's security and to protect India's territorial integrity. Okay, so basically it is enacted to protect security as well as territorial integrity. In this act, they define what is unlawful activity. So unlawful activity is something that an individual, okay, it is done by an individual or it is done by an association, and it involves disrupting the territorial integrity of India. Okay, it involves disrupting the territorial integrity of India. That is what is defined as unlawful activities. The second is the central government. The central government has got the powers to declare an activity as unlawful. Okay, it can declare an activity as unlawful. The third is both Indian as well as foreign nationals can be declared, okay, or can be charged for unlawful activity. So it can be an Indian or a foreigner who can be declared as a person or organization that has committed the unlawful activity. Okay, within the list of organizations that can be banned. Okay, within the list of organizations that can be banned, the central government can ban a list of organizations that have committed the unlawful activities, and within that list, there is also the central government can ban organizations if it feels that they have done any type of terrorist act. So this word called terrorist act was added in 2004 amendment. The word called terrorist act was added in 2004 amendment. Okay, so now any organization that not only takes part in unlawful activities but also takes part in terrorist act can be banned by the central government. And the main authority that is in charge of implementation of UAPA Act is the National Intelligence Agency. Okay, so this is the overall brief about UAPA Act. Now the Jammu and Kashmir High Court has questioned two sections of UAPA. This section 18, this section is questioned by the Jammu and Kashmir High Court because the meaning of terrorism offence, according to section 18 is very, very broad. It is so broad that the Jammu and Kashmir High Court says that it can cast an unimaginably wide net. It can cast an unimaginably wide net to label any innocent as act of terrorism. It gives an example of, you can take any article that is published online and you can tell that this is a conspiration in order to disrupt the integrity of India. So it is so wide. The section 18 is interpreted so widely that any innocent action can be interpreted as terrorism offence, and this particular action can be brought under the law and that person can be arrested. So that is the first criticism that the Jammu Kashmir High Court has done regarding section 18. The next is section 43D. If you take section 43D of 5, here the problem is the courts cannot grant bail if the police proves that the accused has some prima facie evidence. I'll just repeat it. Section 43D says that the courts cannot grant bail if the police has some prima facie evidence regarding the accused. Now see, just having some prima facie evidence regarding the accused will deny the right for the accused to get a bail. This is fine. This is fine regarding the Terrorism Act. However, giving a blanket rule on any type of accused. See, the accused can be of different types. For example, there can be an accused who has done a minor, there is a minor mistake done by the accused. For example, there can be divulging of some financial information. Let us say that there was some divulging of financial information, and there is one more accused that is a major crime, like there is a bomb threat. Okay, now there are two accused, one is a major crime and one is a minor crime. Now both accused are subjected to the same section 43D of 5. This is not fair. That is what the Jammu Kashmir High Court has pointed out. That is, you cannot blanketly tell that any accused will not be granted bail just because the police has some prima facie evidence. Okay, so that is the next argument that the Jammu Kashmir court has highlighted. So regarding UAPA Act, we know that this act is very, very important. The reason why it is very important is because of the internal security problems as well as the border problems that India has. We have both the problem of state actors and non-state actors taking part in disrupting the India's peace, security as well as territorial integrity. So we cannot deny that the importance of UAPA Act is enormous in India. However, the Jammu Kashmir court points out that these two sections, section 18 is very, very broad in its interpretation. Any innocent act can be brought under it and can be termed as a terrorist offence. And section 43D is very blanket rule telling that any accused will be denied bail just because there is some prima facie evidence of that particular accused by the police. Alright, these are the two sections that India has to look into. However, this is some of the issues that is happening in UAPA Act. So I hope you understood the issue of this. Let us go to the last issue of the day. The last issue is India's first Pompe disease patient passes away. What is this rare genetic disorder? Okay, first of all, this Pompe disease is nothing but a rare genetic disorder. Okay, and it is what happens is in our body we will have glycogen. Okay, in our body this glycogen, whenever we need more energy, this glycogen is converted into glucose. Okay, and this glycogen is converted into glucose with the help of an enzyme. Okay, and that enzyme is known as alpha glucosidase. It is this enzyme that will help convert glycogen into glucose, and this glucose gives energy for our work. Okay, so basically this is the normal working of the mechanism of a body. So people who have Pompe disease, it is Pompe disease is also known as glycogen storage disease type 2. See, they have excess of glycogen storage. This excess of glycogen storage is because of the deficiency of an enzyme, and that enzyme is alpha glycosidase. Because they don't have this enzyme, glycogen will not convert into glucose, but glycogen will start getting stored, and this glycogen getting stored will create different problems in the patient. Okay, and one more thing that you should know is Pompe disease is categorized as a rare disease. Okay, now what is important is questions can come more from what is this concept of rare disease. Okay, so if we have to discuss when do I term something as a rare disease, I term something as a rare disease if the prevalence of the disease is 1 by 1000, that is one case for every 1000 population. If there is one case per every 1000 population, then I term that disease as rare disease. Because the disease is so rare, there is no pharmaceutical manufacturer who will manufacture medicines for them. That is why these diseases are known as orphan diseases, because they are always left orphan, because no one cares about them, because there is no profit in manufacturing medicines for them. Hence they are known as orphan diseases, and the drugs are known as orphan drugs. Okay, the problem with rare diseases is because the medicines are very rarely manufactured, because of the low incidence of diseases, the drugs will be very, very costly. For example, average treatment of rare diseases per year, average cost of treatment of rare diseases can come up to almost 10 lakhs to 1 crore. Okay, that is the cost of treatment of rare diseases. Okay, this is the problem not only in India but around the world. The pharmaceuticals are not interested in manufacturing these medicines because there is not much people having these diseases, so there is no market to it. So that is why these orphan diseases or orphan drugs are pretty costly. Okay, recently there was a news where Indian manufacturers had decided to produce drugs for 4 different conditions which are termed as rare diseases. And the 4 conditions where Indian manufacturers have agreed to do is, one is Gaucher's disease. The second is Wilson's disease. The third is tyrosinemia type 1. This is the third one that they have agreed. And the next is Dravet and Lennox. Dravet and Lennox Grastot syndrome. Okay, so these are the 4 conditions which Indian manufacturers have agreed that they will start producing the drugs. Okay, so this is regarding the information about rare disease. Now we also have something called National Policy on Rare Diseases, a very important policy. This was brought out in 2021. This talks about 2 aspects. One is it talks about improving our indigenous research, and the second is it also helps in boosting our local production. And regarding this is what our Indian manufacturers have agreed for that 4 conditions. They want to boost the manufacturing of the drugs regarding those 4 conditions. Okay. Also, this National Policy on Rare Diseases will categorize the rare diseases into 3 categories. One is Group 1, Group 2 and Group 3. These are the 3 categories. Now Group 1 is those rare diseases for which there is one-time curative treatment. So if you give the treatment one time, then you can cure the diseases. The second group 2 is long term and it is going to be lifelong. So you have to have lifelong treatment of the diseases. Now the group 3 is there is definitive treatment available. Group 3 is there is definite treatment available. Definitive treatment available. However, it is very, very costly and the treatment is lifelong. Okay, so there is definitive treatment available. However, it is very costly and it is lifelong. So these are the 3 groups that are created under them. Okay, now this particular policy, one, it gives some type of financial support to the rare diseases. It gives one time grant of 50 lakhs to the people suffering from the rare diseases, and also it comes up with an innovative way of funding, that is, it also will promote crowdfunding for the diseases, because the diseases, the cost of their operation is so costly that it also favors crowdfunding. Okay, so this is the national policy on rare diseases. Okay, so these were some of the important issues of the day. I hope you liked the initiative and I hope you got clarity in these issues. If you did, then please make sure that you like, share and subscribe. Please make sure that you share it with all your friends so that they also can make use of this program. Thank you so much for all the love and support, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.